Hello everyone, I hope you're doing fine. So today we have a very interesting video. It's a podcast between Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes and Myron Gaines. Let's go.
It stands for Wigger nationalist. Wigger meaning, and the reason we call them Wiggers as opposed to Groypers or something else is because you're right. I would say that what is typified by black people is this sort of victim mentality that says, oh, is it because I'm black? Oh, you only have a problem with me because I'm black. Oh, keeping the black man down, all this kind of stuff. The reason we call them Wigger nationalists is because they have kind of adopted the worst aspects of black identity politics, which is to say, oh, you have a problem with me because I'm white? Oh, they're keeping the white man down. Oh, well, they'll just call us racist. Well, they'll just call us Nazis. And my attitude towards the problem is always, they can't stop us. If you go like I did and tell the truth directly and articulately, and you don't let them suppress you, at the end of the day, they really can't stop you. I think I'm living proof of that.
That's true.
And I encourage all my followers, don't make excuses. Don't go around and say, oh, it's because I'm white. Oh, well, they'll never let you say that. They'll never let you do that. They'll say you're racist. I say, try and stop us. What do you mean let? They're not going to let us. We're going to do whatever we want. And so I tell my followers, get as intelligent as you can, read books, learn languages, learn a musical instrument, go to the gym, get physically fit. I tell people, get into the best college you can. And if you're not interested in going that route and networking, then be an entrepreneur, make as much money as possible, infiltrate politics. But I guess where I would diverge slightly, if we're to get into, because I think we're in total agreement on that, and I'm with you 100%. I just would say I'm sure there's some Groypers that are saying something like that. I would call that wignat, this like chest beating. Oh, it's because I'm white. They're keeping the white man down. They are keeping the white man down, but we have to be worthy of our ancestors as white men and say, We don't need permission. We don't need to ask for permission. We're not going to let them get in our way. They're going to do bullshit to us, but we have to find a way to overcome. I guess where I would diverge slightly, because I hear this all the time, and directionally, I suppose I agree.
I mean, you can say whatever you want about Nick, but he knows how to, where he's talking about, and he also knows how to share his opinion. That's very good about him, in my opinion, and I respect that. You don't have to agree with everything he says, but you can deny that this guy, he is on a mission. Let's continue.
But, when you talk about the birth rates, you're 100% right that the birth rates are a problem. The white people are not having kids. And if the white people don't have kids, it's over. We're going to be replaced.
True.
And I hear people say this to me all the time. They say, you need to have kids. And I plan on doing that. I plan on getting married and having kids at some point. I guess where I would depart, even from my fellow white people who say this, is that there is something structural happening where I don't believe the answer is that we're going to tell ourselves we all need to start having kids. Because how many people are even political? How many people are aware of the white genocide? How many people are going to have kids as a response to this problem? It's a very, very tiny number. And it's not to say that we shouldn't contribute to the solution, but it is to say that we fundamentally must engage in politics. It's sort of like chess. All the pawns could simultaneously wake up one day and say, we need to have more white babies. We need to have kids. I think that's highly unlikely. We need to strike at the king. We need a regime. We need to engage in politics. And I don't just mean like voting. I mean, we need to become resourceful, influential, rich, run media, be entrepreneurs, pay politicians to run for office. And we need to use politics to change society. Because when you look at the strategy of the Jews as an example, they're 2% of the population, but they have this extraordinary influence. That's because they go for the locus of power. They're in LA, they're in New York City, they're in DC. These are the most powerful cities in the world. They're in San Francisco, they're in El Segundo. They're striking at the locus of power. And from the locus of power proceeds the cultural standards, precedes these dominant narratives in the education system from academia. And so I'm really a believer, not in as much saying, oh, white people in general need to have more kids. Certainly that's a good thing. But it's more like I want the most brilliant, elite human capital, the smartest, richest, best white people to become as powerful as possible, take over the institutions, and from the institutions promulgate a message of fertility, racial solidarity, national solidarity, and national consciousness. That's kind of where I'm at. And I don't think you'd even disagree, but it's just kind of like going a little step further on that.
I mean, like, you can say whatever you want. You don't have to agree with him, but he is like really speaking some facts. Like, this is reality, and like, seriously, no matter like what your opinion is about it, of course, like, anyone can have a different opinion, but he is not lying. He is not lying, and I really appreciate, or I have respect for his vision and the way he's expressing himself. There's not many people who do it. Or there's not even many people in like real life who says these things, and he is saying this like online. So he has get like a big respect for me, like for Nick, seriously, saying these things. And even if you don't agree with him, you have to you can admit, or you can agree that what he is saying, it's not false, it's real, it's reality. We see it. It happens every day, and obviously everyone can have a different opinion, but how he is saying it, really good, in my opinion. Let's continue.
No, I agree with you, actually, completely. And culture is the driving force behind all things. You know, I often comment on white people, black people. I'm in a unique position because I am a race mixed individual, which pisses off a large percentage of the internet. But this is how I was born, and that's how it goes. And there's not much I can do about it. But I would argue, besides yourself, there's probably no one else with a platform as large as mine who speaks up for white people ever. And one of the problems with extreme right-wing white people is we have this infinitely divisible, constantly searching for more and more based, to the point where no matter how much you do for them or try to help them, you're going to eventually not be based enough for them. And this is seen amongst white people in general. If we removed all the black people from Western civilization today, within 30 years, the Germans would be fighting the Italians again. I mean, that's what happened. Only 30 or 40 years ago, the Irish and English were blowing each other up. And now Ireland and England's both full of asylum seekers from the boats. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. So this infinitely divisible, this constant search for the more and more based version, I actually think in some ways subverts the whole movement. The movement you've launched is so fantastic. The cultural effect you've had is also fantastic. But the biggest threat to the movement is not going to be external. It's going to be internal. And there is a percentage of people, no matter what I say, in defense of you, in defense of white people, in defense of Western civilization, come along and say, because my dad is black, who was a chess genius, by the way, is the only reason I'm even smart, that I'm a piece of shit and I need to be kicked out or I need to die or whatever. And I don't care, because truthfully, I think it's hilarious. But when you have these cartoon anon accounts constantly going to a deeper and deeper level of everyone's a Jew, everything is this, everything is that, and they can't even get along with somebody who is clearly on their side in the larger fight, this is how you're going to end up losing the fight in the long run. And I think that's where some of the problem comes from, which again is not even your fault, but that's the problem with that movement as a whole. And I'm going to say one thing from a personal perspective. I do feel like there is a degree of ungratefulness. Once again, this is not your fault, but there's an ungratefulness amongst people and an ungratefulness amongst the internet. I remind the internet on October 8th, against all legal advice, I told Piers Morgan it was a genocide. I stuck up and was anti-Israel on Piers Morgan on October 8th, before it was cool on the internet, very much like you. Now everybody does it. You did it before it was cool. I did it before I was cool. Anti-Semitism is a crime in Europe. They put me back on house arrest. I was locked in my house for 11 months because of what I said on a podcast. And now they turn up and tweet underneath that I'm a Jew. And I just think if that's how we're going to operate as a movement, we're only ever going to be a laughingstock to our enemies. And I agree with you about the locus of power. You're completely correct. And I think it's a multifaceted attack. But we have to be very careful here, because if I owned a farm and all the sheep worked out that I had a slaughterhouse, And all they did all day was say, that's a slaughterhouse. He's got a slaughterhouse. But they still walked into it. I wouldn't really care. There has to be a point where you don't obey what I want you to do. If they're trying to stop you from reproducing, then you must reproduce. If they're trying to beat you down so you don't make money because of usury, you need to make money. If they don't want you to be brave, you need to be brave. You need to look at their exact playbook. And instead of tweeting at people, instead of accusing every single person who doesn't have an Anon cartoon account of being a Jew, you need to do the absolute opposite of what they want you to do. And I believe that's how we win. That's how your movement and you become president of the United States. I think that's better for you and the movement as a whole. So when I made that tweet, that Groypers speak like a defeated people, that's because I'll say something, and I speak in absolutes. I absolutely do, and I think trolling is hilarious. And I make it clear that, you know, a white man, I say white man can't get a kid out of a woman unless he buys her 2 houses and 3 cars and a nanny, ha, ha, ha. The Somalian can get 11 kids out of Fatima without a job. And I make a joke of it. All the replies is, well, now you're a Jew, you're a race-mixing Jew, you work for the Jews. And I just think that that is counterproductive to the good fight and counterproductive to your movement. That's my actual view.
I completely agree, like, surprise, surprise. I completely agree with Tate here as well. Like, the people who are, and like, again, like, you don't have to agree with it, with the movement or not, but the people who spread the same message have to stop fighting each other, because I can see it way more on the right-wing side, on the conservative side. People, like, they have the same opinion, they share the same opinion or almost the same opinion, but they start attacking each other on, like, little things, like, you said this, no, that's not right, you said that. Like, I mean, those people, they're not gonna win this fight if they start attacking each other already before the real fight has even begun. Like, if you know what I mean. Like, same as, like, for example, like Nick and Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens and, like, more people, Tucker Carlson, and, like, you don't have to agree with all of them, but they're all, like, spreading a little bit, like, the same message. And they are fighting each other, Elon Musk as well. They're fighting each other constantly. They should stop wasting their time in fighting each other, and they should invest their time, or, like, spend their time on, like telling the real problems to the people. Like instead of, like, it's what Tate says here. Like, I cannot even say it better than him, because he literally, like, said it, like, in the best way you can say it. But if you know what I mean, like, all those people, like, on the right-wing side, they are attacking each other constantly, like, 24/7, and it's such a waste of time. They should, like, bundle their powers and use their powers together instead of, like, against each other. But that's just my opinion. Let's continue.
At the same time, though, you got to recognize that if you're going to rage bait, you can't really be mad when people get mad. You know what I mean?
Mad. I think it's hilarious. Yeah. I think it's funny. I mean, I literally, I'm real nigger Tate. I call myself a nigger all day long. I think it's funnier than it. I love trolling. I'm all for it. I'm just saying that if we're going to try and have a serious political movement here, then calling every single person a Jew because of some tedious or tenuous link, I think, is disingenuous. I think that, and again, this is just my personal view, and I don't know enough. Since I got released from house arrest after 3 years in my house in February, I haven't been online that much. And I noticed you said I didn't weigh in on the Candace Tucker thing. I'm not versed enough to truly weigh in. I haven't seen every video. I haven't seen all of it. I haven't seen the back and forth. I've been with my children living my life. However, I would argue that Tucker has red-pilled a lot of people who would never watch your show about very important things that are happening in the American government that you'd agree with. I would say the same for Candace. I think of them on the good side of the fight. And perhaps this is going to get me in trouble. I think of them as good people trying to do the best thing they can, which is tell their version of the truth. And they're by and large on our side. And I think this infinite, divisible, constant infighting, constant looking for who's the most base, constantly saying, well, he's done 99 things right, but this one thing makes him a Jew. I just think it's holding us back by and large. That's my personal view, but it's not my movement.
This is exactly what I just mentioned. Like he says it again. This is exactly what I meant. Like, of course, you don't have to agree on every point, but, like, they're all fighting the same fight almost. But let's continue.
So I'm just saying what I see it as from the outside.
Well, and, you know, maybe that's where the disagreement lies, because I talked with Alex Jones about this yesterday. We didn't even plan on talking about it, but he brought it up. Obviously, I'm in this big feud with both Candace and Tucker Carlson right now. And I see it being characterized on Twitter by some people as infighting. And I would agree with you. I would tend to agree with you that if I were an outside observer, I would look at Candace and Tucker and myself, and I would think we're all on the same side. We're all pushing in the same direction. Certainly, we're all criticizing Israel. We're all against the war in Iran and the rest of it. And that's what I would tend to think. And yet, when I went out and did Candace's show, instead of talking about what we had in common, she wanted to talk about all the things that we had apart. And she in particular wanted to press me on if I really hated Jews and if I was really a racist. So that confounded me, because if I'm an outside objective observer, maybe without all the information, I would say, wait, aren't Candace, Tucker, and Nick on the same side? But being me, I went to do her show with my suit on, ready to talk about the Iran war, the neocons, all this kind of stuff. And she's pressing me, why do you hate Dave Smith? Is it because he's Jewish? Do you hate Jews for being Jewish? Are you a racist? Is that why you're against race mixing? And so I finished the interview, and not to relitigate the whole thing, but this is just a summary of it. I finish the thing and I get on my show and I say, it's weird she's putting it behind a paywall. I said, and also I'm unhappy with what we talked about. I thought this was an olive branch. Clearly it was some kind of like a lecture. I thought she was having me out to maybe extend an olive branch and connect. And instead I got a wagging finger from a woman in my face, which I don't really care for. And then, as if to make matters better, she goes with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker, who, you know, me and him have a bit of a history, he calls me a basement-dwelling, weird gay kid. He says I'm a CIA agent. He unloads this personal attack on me. And so, yeah, I would not characterize that as infighting. I would say, to me, that looks like a coordinated attack on me, and it's not purity spiraling. It is coming from them in the other direction, saying that I'm too extreme. In fact, that's literally what Tucker said. Tucker said that I am a crazy anti-Semite who is trying to make them look bad by being too ideologically pure. So, you know, maybe you've been away for a long time, you don't know what's going on, but it wasn't me coming at them for being soft. No, they were coming at me for being too extreme. And that's where I have to defend myself and say, wait a second, you're calling me a CIA agent? Your fucking dad was in the CIA. I said this to Tucker on this big show. A week later, Elon Musk is echoing what Tucker Carlson said, calling me a Fed. And it's in the context of this Matrix attack. I don't know what else you call that. That then you came on Twitter and said the thing about the Groypers. I think that's why they took it a certain way, because what it looked like was coordination. I don't know if you're in on that or not. I don't believe you were, but certainly something weird is going on. And it all coincided with what you said, which is I'm on this generational run. I have broken containment. I'm going mainstream. Now, I would like to do a show with Tucker and talk about our similarities and differences. I would have liked to do that with Candace Owens, but it seems like they're trying to keep me out. They're trying to push me aside. As far as the movement's concerned, I'd like to be on the same page with them, but, you know, they don't feel that way about me. So, you know, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that whole situation?
I mean, I get what Nick is saying. I get his point, and what happened is also right. What he's saying here is also right. They were the first ones who were attacking him. But instead of like continuing the fight and like reacting to what they are saying, making videos about them as well. I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong as well. I understand Nick's frustration, but maybe you should just give them a call or something behind the screen, talk about it, like clear some things up. Because now I can say it over and over again, and Tate as well. If you continue doing this fight like online, like it's only gonna be worse for both sides. Like there's no winners in this side, because some people will choose his side, Nick's side, other people will choose Candace's side, and that's the whole problem what Andrew and just addressed, and what's also my opinion. Then you get like a divided, or like the right-wing people, like the conservatives, and the people, you get like an you get different groups, and that's like what should not happen. We should not like be like divided. Like, of course, like the leftists want that. They are dreaming of that. Like the right wing is being divided. But that's will be your own downfall. That's not good. Like, we should not do that. And of course, like Nick just said, like, they started this attack in, I don't know in what way you can see it as an attack, but he was trying to defend himself, and I can understand that. But that's like the whole problem what we just or what they just addressed, and what I'm also saying, because then you have like this fight in between or in the right side. You have like different groups attacking each other. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of resources, and the only winners are going to be the leftists, because they will enjoy it. They will literally, the only thing they want is like the right wing getting destroyed. That's literally what they want. So we should stop doing that. And of course, like, I'm a nobody to give some advice to Nick, but in this case, I will just call them up. Like, stop doing this fight like online. I mean, like, of course, it's fun for us to see, or maybe for some, but it's not good. We should not like be divided. We should be strong together, and then that's the only way we can win this battle, in my opinion. But let's go.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. And like I said, I'm not fully versed on all of it. I guess there's two ways I can answer that question. At a certain point, and of course, you're a full-grown man, you make your own decisions. I'll be very clear that I like Candace. She's always been very respectful to me. I think she's fantastic at her job. I actually think she's amazing at what she does. I have nothing bad to say about her. I think that when people were saying the Bridget series was irrelevant, I think that's disingenuous. I think it's actually very relevant to find out if the most prominent country in the European Union is being run by a pedophile and his dad. I also think it's hilarious that she trolled Macron into having a meltdown. I think that trolling's funny, and I think it's funny. I don't know how anyone doesn't find that funny, that legal letters are flying around the world. I mean, you're saying they attacked you. I respect it. There's two ways to answer that question. The first thing you can do, and you can make your own decision as a full-grown man, is it about you and your own personal feelings, which it's allowed to be, by the way, or is it about the movement by and large as a whole? Because I've sat down with people who have come out for me guns blazing, but I believe they were 65% on the same side as me. And I defended myself, and I thought, you know what? They're doing more harm than good. And instead of arguing about the color of the wallpaper inside the castle, let's defeat the orcs at the gate first. And then we can start arguing about how we're going to decorate this room. But that's a decision that you can make personally. I'm not saying what they did is right, and I'm not saying what you did is wrong. That's a decision that you can make. I understand that my timing now with that context would be suspect. I understand that absolutely. But I have nothing against Candace and Tucker. And the whole CIA agent dad thing, I'd actually like to address that as well. One of the reasons why that holds no weight with me is my father was in the intelligence services. And now there's a whole bunch of people spamming my account saying that I'm a Jewish asset because my father was CIA. But I've been very honest and open about the fact that he was a translator and he spoke 3 languages. And I was also open about the fact that he was discharged without a pension for not following orders, ended up living in his car, being a traveling chess player. And I had to grow up in a homeless hostel in Luton, England, fighting Kosovans at the age of 11. So if there's some big intel agency op going on, I never got any money from it. And our family grew up destitute. And I grew up in the worst area in England. And now they're throwing me in jail at random. So for anyone to believe that I'm some kind of intelligence op or a Fed is disingenuous. And another thing, and I want to make this clear, when I talk with you about issues, I'm very honest and open about the fact that you have swaths of knowledge I don't have. I don't want to get pulled into muddy waters where I'm in a situation and we're discussing something I know nothing about. You can start talking about the financing of a particular senator, and I don't know. So I kind of operate on feels. You know, do I think you're a Fed? Truthfully, in my heart, no. Do I think Candace and Tucker are Feds? In my heart, no. When someone says, Tucker's a Fed, his dad was in the CIA, I say, my dad was in the CIA and we were fucking broke. And he got discharged and he died destitute with $15 in his pocket. So I don't buy any of that. What I do think is perhaps there's some ego involved. Perhaps we're at a pivotal moment in culture. Perhaps maybe there is a degree of them trying to assert dominance over you or trying to show that, you know, they're not scared of your influence. That's all possible and all very real. I can only answer what I would have done in your situation, which was what I said earlier. I would have sat down with Candace, I would have defended myself and say, you know what, by and large, I think she does fantastic work. By and large, I agree with her. So I don't see the point in going to war with her. However, that's your decision to make. And I do also understand that going to war with people is entertaining. And we are in the entertainment business. That's another thing to consider. It's pretty funny to go to war with people and start swinging. But we have to sit down and be professionals here. And as professionals, we have to sit and say, okay, are we really trying to win? Because if there's things you've said I could get upset about, but I don't actually give a shit. You could sit here right now and call me a nigger and say I'm a Jew, and I'd be like, you know what? I like you anyway. I'm going to like you whether you like it or not. I'm going to say, I like what Nick says. I think what he's doing is important. I don't give a fuck what he says about me. I like what he does. And I think that that's actually a degree of maturity that the left have that we don't have, because they hate us so much. They're so unified and binded by their hate for us that they'll never infight over small issues. They're too busy trying to kill us. And I think unless we can manage to get our heads around doing something similar, we're always going to end up, every time we get any power, just infighting and falling to pieces.
10 points to Andrew Tate. Like, he is the best one to express it, and like, he is the best one. Like, I cannot add anything. Like, literally this is what I just tried to mention, but Tate does it 10 times better. 10 points to Tate. Let's continue.
Well, I would say that as far as you three are concerned, I do believe you're all different. I think that you are different than Tucker, and I think that Tucker is different from Candace. And the reason I knew that is because when Candace went on with Tucker, Tucker said, oh, you know, this kid, he's saying my dad is in the CIA. And Candace said, yeah, and he said that I'm Russian intelligence. And Tucker said, yeah, but that's more likely than my dad being in the CIA or me being in the CIA. So in that moment, I was like, okay, so wait a second. These two are not on the same page. And I don't think you're on the same page with them even necessarily on this whole thing. And I guess what I would say about their attack is, in particular, Tucker's attack was to discredit me. And, you know, I don't want to drag you into a conversation that you don't know all the information about, because I don't think that's fair. But suffice to say, the particular thrust of his attack was to say that I'm a federal operative, was to say that I'm a federal agent. And you say that the question is, how do I handle that? Do I punch back really hard? Do I sort of take my lumps, so to speak? I would say that's a very pernicious and specific charge to make, which is supposed to say, and it was almost artful the way that he did it. He said, Nick says a lot of the right things, but you shouldn't listen to him because he's not who he says he is. And that sort of says to me that they are trying to block me from having influence. They're trying to destroy my reputation so that people don't listen. And in my show against Tucker, I sort of contrasted our two positions. If it's about the movement, for me, my movement says we're about American sovereignty. We want to break free from Israel. We want to break free from Jewish oligarchs. It's identitarian. America has a white character. It has a European character. It's racial. That has a lot to do with it. We need to shut down immigration. We need to get rid of this oligarchic syndicate that's running our country. And I would question, does Tucker conform to that? Because repeatedly he insists, I have never talked about racial replacement migration. He insists, I'm not an enemy of Israel. I love Israel. I love going to Israel. Now, you know, what movement is he a part of? He's part of the movement where you work for Fox News for 20 years. And then when the whole world gets red-pilled, now you're going to talk about Israel a little bit. Is the movement where your dad's in the CIA? Is the movement where you call up Trump and tell him to do a COVID lockdown? Is the movement where you say you hate Trump and you're ready to see him go away because you can't stand him? I don't know who Tucker is. I know who I am. And I would say that when push comes to shove, I have a much better case to make that I'm a credible voice than he does. I would make the case that my movement, to the extent that it's different, is much more consistent with what's right and where the people are at. If he wants to make it me versus him, be my guest. I don't think he's going to like where that goes on a long enough timeline. So that's why I said to Alex Jones yesterday, I said, I would love to privately or publicly talk to Tucker. If he thinks I'm a Fed, if he cares about the movement, then, you know, look, I'm not going away anytime soon. He needs to listen and take me seriously, obviously, because his attack on me backfired. I think he needs to put up or shut up. Have me on the show and debate the differences, make the case I'm a Fed, or get with the fucking program. But that's kind of where I'm at with him. So I'm with you.
I can't wait for Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, and Candace Owens having like one podcast together. That will be like that would be crazy, like the most viewed podcast ever. But anyway, like I really hope that that's going to happen, and I would not be surprised that it will happen soon as well. Probably they just have to speak this out online together at a podcast or an interview. I don't care about what, but they just need to settle down, all three of them, even at Elon Musk as well. That would be even greater. Seriously, I think that will happen. I hope it will happen, and that would be the best idea to solve it, in my opinion. But let's see what he's saying.
I do have a consciousness of the movement, and I think that maybe Tucker plays a role in this movement, and maybe Candace plays a role, but I think they need to have a team player mentality. I can't be expected to have all the magnanimity in the world and all the patience and tolerate the kind of nonsense they're throwing my way. That's kind of my position, because I like you a lot, and I think, you know, when you and I had our disagreement on Twitter, you said, fuck it, let's get on a stream. I love that. I think that's honest. I think, you know, like you said, we don't agree on everything. And I've taken issue with things you've said and vice versa. But we can kind of talk about where we align. And first of all, we can talk. Yeah. I think we should expect the same thing from them as well. And in particular, Tucker. So that's sort of.
This is what I just said. Like, just debate. Just debate. You don't have to agree on everything. Like, obviously, all humans are different. You don't have to have the same opinions. But if it's like 80% you have the same opinions and maybe 20% not, that's still good, right? But I can see he's now already low-key giving a hint or an invitation for Tucker to have like an interview. So I wouldn't be surprised if the interview will happen, what I said before. But let's see what Tate has to say.
Matt, because I sort of see what you're saying, but I got to stick up for myself a little bit in this case.
Totally get it. And that's my point about the tweet I made. And I totally understand how the timing was suspect. But even recently, even today, one more thing I want to say when it comes to your movement as a whole. And once again, I need to stay in my lane because it's not my movement. It's yours and you've built it. And most importantly, you've suffered for it. It wasn't handed to you. You suffered to build what you've built, which is why it's so strong and so powerful. Same as my movement, which, you know, I would say it's moved over now. I did my job. And I would argue that we moved into a new era where we have new concerns. When I was saying the things I was saying at the time, it was groundbreaking, and now everybody says them. And there's always going to be a part of you, which is a bit like, okay, so when it was dangerous to say these things, I did it. And now it's not dangerous. Everyone says it. And it pisses you off a little bit. So I also understand perhaps when you just mentioned, you said there that Tucker's now saying it when everyone else is saying it. There's going to be a bit of personal like, hey, I got debanked. I couldn't fly. I suffered for this. Like I went to jail for what I said. And now everyone tweets it all day long and calls me a fed. Part of you is going to be like, well, that's ungrateful of the masses, isn't it? Because I was the one who was suffering to even say this stuff in the first place. True. Which is a real important point. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. I totally get it. And one more thing with the whole Groyper movement as a whole, and I just want to say these things, and I'm saying them from an outside perspective. I am a friend of your movement. I consider myself a friend of yours. I believe in what you guys are doing. You're fucking hilarious. I'm not an enemy in any regard. But I do think that it's very difficult. We have to draw a line somewhere, and we have to have some degree of, well, what are the parameters then? Okay, Tucker did attack Nick, perhaps, or Candace attacked Nick, perhaps, fine. But if they are exposing X, Y, Z, is that worthwhile? And also, we have to come along and say, sometimes these tedious links can be exaggerated upon. Only a few hours ago, I retweeted Milo, and you wrote a tweet underneath it saying that this is very suspicious. This was a few hours ago. And I retweeted Milo because Milo defended me saying that all these court cases against me, nobody can seem to put me in jail. Nobody has any proof. I didn't think, Milo and Nick, I don't know the story of you two, to be honest. I now know you don't like each other. I don't know why. And with all due respect, I don't care. He defended me, so I retweeted it. I also retweeted a 3-person account who defended me with 3 followers. He could be a pedo. I don't fucking know. I just retweeted it. So sometimes there's too much noticing and there's too many strings drawn and there's too much, people are looking for insult where it doesn't really exist. And I think that's one of the other things separate to Candace and Tucker, because that was very deliberate against you, as you've just explained. One of the other things that I catch flack for from your movement is I breathe in the wrong direction. And perhaps a Jew was pointing that way when he breathed in 1941. And before you know it, I've got these spurgs spamming all over Twitter. And the reason that that's a bad thing is not because I give a shit. It's because it genuinely delegitimizes what you're trying to do.
All right. So I will end the video here because this was the end about this subject. Thank you all for watching. please hit a like. Please hit a subscribe if you like this video. Even share if you want it. I really would appreciate it. I wish you guys all the best. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.